Well, hello and welcome to Boston, Massachusetts. Let me get all dolled up here for you. Let me button. Got back to the room making some coffee, and we'll be doing some post-game stories all night long here on Pittsburgh Hockey Now and Boston Hockey Now. A lot of storylines in that game. The Penguins win 4-2. I think, obviously, the story leading up to the 59th minute was Tristan Jarry. The story after the 60th minute would be Tristan Jarry and Brad Marchand. Obviously, I think Jarry kind of deferred. He demurred in the post game following, it's like, well, it's heat of the moment. Now, there was something else there with Brad Marchand and Jarry. By the way, what do you think of the lovely 70s curtains here in the hotel room? Here, I'll move them away so they don't hurt your eyes. Fixed my hair too. It's been a long day. So there is so much to talk about. Well, obviously, your comments and your chat. This is a live Penguins chat, not necessarily a post-game show as much because I'm on the laptop. I don't have the iPad and the entire setup here to do highlights. And in fact, I don't even have a share screen button where I can re-show what happened. You'll just have to go to Pittsburgh Hockey Now to see the video. In fact, here I'll post the link in case you want to see a replay. I'm in Boston, so I can't see quite what the Penguins broadcast is doing with it. I can imagine some folks are a little bit upset by it. I'm just going to go out on a limb here. There is the Jarry Marchand story, as Trey says, egregious but entertaining. I guess so. All's well that ends well, right? Neither player was hurt. Marchand probably gets a little bit of a vacation. I can see him getting a 1 to 3 game suspension for that. Ordinary player probably gets a $5,000 fine, maybe a 1 game suspension. But since Marchand was already suspended once this season, he's going to be. Yeah, he'll be sat down, I think, after that one. Yeah, Matt says, crazy Penguins fans. Look at how great the Penguins did without Gino. Let's break that down. I'm doing this off the cuff here, extemporaneously without all of my notes in front of me. They're other side of the room there as I came running into the room. Also, by the way, I don't know if you saw my tweet. If you're here, you probably did anyway, that Ron Hextall and Jason Botterill were in conversations in the arena. You never know. It could just be, hey, did you go up to the north side for some raviolis? Or it could be something a little more serious than that. It's not like Botterill and Hextall work together, so they're not necessarily former co-workers catching up. That's a GM talking to an assistant GM in a foreign building. And I think you're within every right to speculate or have a little bit of fun with that one. There certainly is one former Penguins player on the Seattle Kraken who could help the Penguins going forward. So let's talk a little bit about the Penguins game. We'll break that down. Before I do that, do me a favor, like and subscribe to the channel. Please help us get over 1,000 likes on that. I think my hotel coffee is done. Cheers. Oh, that's awful. So, like I said, the story for the first 59 minutes was, in fact, Tristan Jarry. I thought he bailed the Penguins' bacon out. There's just no question that they were being outshot 35-17, 35-18. They gave up 45 shots. You just cannot do that. If you want to win games, you cannot do that with any sort of consistency. And given the way the Penguins ended the first half of the season, winless in 4, a bit listless, lifeless, sloppy, systems, structures breaking down, if I'm Mike Sullivan tomorrow morning, I'm not real happy. Yeah, you'll take the 2 points every day of the week, But this is also about building towards April, May, and June. This is not about winning in February anymore. The Penguins are now, 18 points? I don't know what Detroit did tonight. They're 16 or 18 points ahead of the Detroit Red Wings for the final playoff spot. That's almost no chance that the Penguins would fall out of the playoffs. So we can begin to cast our gaze forward and look at what the Penguins have in front of them, and they can't continue to play this kind of sloppy hockey. Boston did several things that the Penguins, I don't want to say we're not prepared for, because that would lay it on Mike Sullivan. The Penguins players are making too many mistakes. They're getting beat in too many one-on-one battles. The top defensive pairing, I'm not quite sure what's going on with Brian Dumoulin, but he's getting beat. Perhaps, well, you can speculate beyond that, but Dumoulin is getting beat. Chris Letang was beaten a couple times, and he made a couple more mistakes on Tuesday night, which you really don't want your number one defenseman to make. You can't come charging in on the pinch when there's nobody behind you. Look, Boston had a 3-on-1. That's brutal. I saw Letang get beaten behind the net a couple of times by the Bruins. The Bruins were able to create chaos in front of the Penguins' net. Here, let me share this tweet here. Just get others here. We're live. Yay. Come on and join us. Come on and have some fun. Okay, let me get back here to your comments and everything else. Detroit was off, Dave. Thank you, Dave. By the way, Dave, I did see your tweet about, acknowledging my Carl Sneap reference last weekend. Hey, whenever you get to reference Carl Sneap, that's a good day, right? And if I look tired, it's been because I am tired. Anywho, I always hate when my hair's all messed up and looking ratty and I look like I'm 90. I guess at some point I am. I just am going to look like I'm 90, right? So Jarry was unfazed and Marchand being bothered was entertaining. That's a good take on it. I would love to know what Jarry said. Because bear in mind, Brad Marchand is an Olympian, an all-star, one of the most recognized names and faces in the game. Didn't make the all-star game. And there's Jarry winning $1 million in the all-star game. So do you think maybe Jarry tries to give the fan to the puck give the fan to the puck. Give the puck to the fan in the second period. Marchand just, two hands it away from Jarry. You think Jarry maybe reminded Marchand that Jarry won the All-Star game and Marchand wasn't even there? Do you think maybe Jarry just kind of rubbed it in his face just with a little poke of smug just to get under his skin? And how funny is that if Jarry did, getting under the skin of the agitator? I'm telling you, Jarry, I've told you this a few times this season. It's not like I'm breaking news here. Jarry has a little bit of a swagger this year. There's a certain relaxation. There's a certain confidence about him that has not been there before. I don't want to call it maturity because that's not what it is. Maybe someday I'll reach maturity and recognize it. But there's a little bit of a smirk. There's a wink and a nod with Jarry this year. That, yeah, go ahead, try to beat me. And I tend to enjoy that. I've been around long enough where I have a little bit of a different view, I know, than some of you. When I see a player starting to have fun with the big picture of things, I enjoy that because that's kind of where I live too. My writing, my coverage of the Penguins is generally about the forest, not about the trees. I'll tell you why the trees make up the forest, but I generally talk about the forest, and I just have a feeling that Jarry went through the worst. He may have hit rock bottom last summer. He may have had that moment where he had to examine himself and what he had accomplished last season and compare and contrast that against what happened to him in the playoffs. and kind of maybe have that moment where I'm just not going to let that happen to me again. I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to be better next time. And it begins now. And I think that's a bit of what is going on with Jarry. And then when you start stopping pucks, 43 of 45 on Tuesday night, he was clearly the difference. I mean, Boston gets 45 shots on net. Boston, the Bruins, and this is where I start to, if I'm head coach Mike Sullivan, this is where I start to grab the chalkboard, because Boston was able to create chaos in front of the net. Think back through the game, how many times Boston was just that close to having a third shot, a fourth shot on Jarry. There were loose pucks with an open cage because Jarry was sprawled, one way, and the Penguins' defense was flat-footed in front of their goalie, where the Penguins' defense was simply just looking around while Boston was able to take it to them behind the net, near the net. Even the rushes, Boston was able to, I thought Boston was able to really get to Marcus Pettersson on Tuesday night. I can't say Pettersson played poorly. I think Boston took advantage of Pettersson's weaknesses and really got after him, got to the edge on him. They forechecked him hard. They kind of beat him to some pucks. They kept him from making those pillowy, soft breakout passes that he is known for. So I didn't think Pettersson had a very good game. Didn't think Chris Letang had a very good game. I thought Brian Dumoulin, if you notice Brian Dumoulin, he's like an offensive lineman. It's generally in a bad situation. John Marino on the penalty kill doesn't get the puck out, whether that was a pass for Brian Boyle or a failed clearing attempt. Either way, Marino doesn't get it out. And those little mistakes, as a one-off in a game, your goalie can bail you out and, you go on to win and no one remembers it. You kind of kick yourself, you learn and you move on. But when they begin to multiply and there's this cavalcade, an avalanche of them, well, then that becomes a little bit concerning. And I see the Penguins really trending the wrong way. You can't blame Evgeny Malkin tonight, right? Let's see here. Dave asks, is there a metric for puck possession? Thanks for the shout out. Dave, there is, however, it's not public. I think teams keep it. I think a couple of the national organizations keep a puck possession. I think Sportsnet keeps it, but they don't necessarily publish it, right? I just can't go click on it and see. If somebody else, knows where it's at, I would also like to see it. It's one of those things, I think that the big organizations that can afford that stuff, maybe National Hockey Now will get there sooner than later. Why not, right? So if someone knows where it's at, by all means, let me know. Theo says Friedman over Ruedel. I'll tell you what, Theo, I actually liked Chad Ruedel's game on Tuesday night. He was firm on the blue line. His gaps were proper. Now, he was, of course, part of the flat-footed crew in front of his own net a couple of times, but all of the Penguins defensemen were guilty of that. And, Ruedel was only one of 6 defensemen to be caught doing that on multiple occasions. But I otherwise thought he played a strong and quiet game. So no, I probably would not put Mark Friedman in there. Friedman, I'm not sure what to make of Mark Friedman at this point. I think he's a little bit of a wild child on the ice. And I think that lack of comfortability, that's the word I'm going to go with. I don't think he makes the coaches comfortable with him. I think he can do some things that Ruedel can't, but I also think he will do some things that Ruedel won't. And that's it, maybe in a bad way. So I think that's why Friedman will not be in over Chad Ruedel. Let's see here. Rob, Kapanen seems to be the the whooping boy? You mean whipping boy, right? Maybe expectations are too high and this is what he is? No, I don't think so. And I wanted to ponder that for a moment because this is the same career arc. This is Kapanen part 2 now, or part 2 for Kasperi Kapanen, because he did the same thing in Toronto, whereas he scored 20 goals. Was it 18, 19? Do I have my years right? And Toronto got really excited about him. Look, Carolina came to the table that offseason after he scored 20 goals, and they were pounding on the door. They were like, you can't afford him. We know you can't. Give him to us. And they were banging on that door. In retrospect, maybe Jim Rutherford was too, but we know that Carolina really was banging on Toronto's door. However, Kapanen followed up that 20-goal season in Toronto with 13 goals, getting shuffled down the lineup, fourth line duty. I don't know if he was scratched or not. I'd have to look that up. Or maybe you can look it up for me. Was that 1920 then? He scored 13 goals, and the Penguins acquired him for a first-round pick. And because he had such a dip 2 years ago, that even Carolina kind of backed off a little bit. Carolina was not willing to match Jim Rutherford's offer. Remember some of Pittsburgh Hockey Now's reporting on that subject that I'm not sure if it was Friedman who was first on it, but we also kind of had some information too that the Penguins were the only one willing to give up that mid-first round pick. Carolina was also right there in the mid-first round. They had one of those, 15, 16, whatever it was, picks. And Carolina wouldn't do it. The Penguins would. Is this what Kapanen is? Perhaps what he is just inconsistent. But there sure as heck is the talent, the raw materials there for an elite player. The speed, the physicality, the shot, so many things he possesses are elite. But the rubber has to meet the road. And he wouldn't be the first player with all of the tools, but a faulty toolbox, right? Okay, let me see who else here. Maybe fans should whoop at him. No. Oh boy, that would be bad. I don't. Maybe you're old enough to remember, Rob. That's what Larry Murphy, Hall of Fame defenseman, was chased out of Washington back in the mid 80s. Now, bear in mind, Larry Murphy was, right there with Mario and Gretzky, setting up the 1987 Canada Cup game-winning goal. Hall of Fame defenseman with the Pittsburgh Penguins, won more cups with the Detroit Red Wings. But earlier in his career, the fans in Washington chased him out by whoop. Every time he touched the puck, his home fans would make that whoop noise, like, whoops. And I think the GM, I'm trying to recall who it was in the mid-'80s. It certainly wasn't George McPhee. Who in the heck was it? Anyway, the GM finally said, listen, you want out? This is brutal. I can't bear to watch them do this to you. And they traded him. This is what hockey was 35, 40 years ago. This is, these are how the boys operated. And they literally traded Larry Murphy for his own well-being. So, no, I don't want to see Penguins fans whoop. Let me get to some of the comments here. Got to think better things than Kapanen for a long run, even if it's depth D or depth in goal, especially D. We have enough forwards that don't score and work harder. I am starting to wonder about the forwards. Danton Heinen, he scored 2 tonight. He was one of the ones I wondered about because you've got Heinen, who was ice cold, had 2 points in his last 14 games. Evan Rodriguez, 2 points in his last 14 games. Now 2 points in his last 15 games. When was the last time Jeff Carter scored? Right. I think Carter's point totals might look good, but he's not been a factor lately. Kind of forgetting the All-Star break. Zach Aston Reese, 1 goal. Brock McGinn seems to be a factor. Maybe not piling up the points like you'd see, but he's not supposed to be getting a lot of points. Brock McGinn's supposed to be a grinder, but now he's playing top 6. And so I have to wonder if Ron Hextall looks at his team and says, a top 6 winger with a good shot, maybe a left wing, would be the way to go. I mean, I have to wonder that if Hextall would open the door. And I was even told today of one winger the Penguins could have. I don't know if I should. Let me tell you this. I don't necessarily yet trust the information enough to tell you the winger, but he's the name is starting to float out there that there's a top 6 winger who could be had by the Penguins. And if we get comfortable with the information, then I'll certainly pass it along. Right now, I think it was some hockey execs kicking some cans around, seeing, what, he would fit with Pittsburgh. And I think that's where it was. I don't know that we can call it a report just yet. Let's see here. Can we afford Giordano? Probably not. I don't think the Penguins are going to get a 37-year-old defenseman. Giordano is probably going to cost a first-round pick, maybe a prospect. So no, I don't like the idea of getting Giordano. I don't see Hextall mortgaging a future quite like that. I mean, he gave up a 3rd and 4th round pick for Jeff Carter. That's kind of low risk. When you go higher risk, I don't see Hextall. By the way, how's the sound? Everything cool with that? Let's see here. I'm sick of the rat. Hope the NHL suspends him 20 to 30 games. John, I think you might see a couple games, but he's going to have to be a little more egregious before you see 20 or 30 games. Was Dave Poyle the GM of the Capitals in the mid-'80s? That, without looking, Dave, that might be right. Okay. J-Plan, 5 times 5. What are you talking about? J-Plan, what are you talking about? 5-5. Who's 5-5? And Greg. Cool. All right, Greg, cool. You're cool too. But getting back maybe to the actual nuts and bolts, and that's what you and I think want to talk about. Or maybe you want to talk about Ron Hextall chatting with Jason Botterill for not just one intermission, but a pair of intermissions. Sound is 5x5. Does that mean good? Is that like 5 stars? Hope I can move it closer if I have to. I can do that to move it closer. Although with my face, distance is my friend. Let's talk a little bit. Well, I'm going to get myself in trouble if I start talking Hextall and Botterill. I don't want to do that just yet because, you're just speculating. And my speculation now becomes the fodder of every trade rumor site in the league. Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now reporting that the Penguins are indeed in serious talks for Jared McCann, Martin Giordano, and a player to be named later with a bag of donuts. He said the price was, like I've said, none of this. So I'll leave maybe you to the speculation. I do think it's interesting. I do think Seattle has some players, and I don't think Seattle picked that team with any intention of keeping it together. I think they picked that team almost to have their own expansion draft again this coming summer. They're going to be just selling off pieces and parts over the next 6 months. And they're going to start signing players, and they're going to start acquiring players with these draft picks. They're going to go crazy, I think, on the trade market. Although Ronnie Francis is a guy like Hextall, who has been more patient than impatient, who has been more methodical and plotting than Jim Rutherford. I guess if Ron Hextall is over here, there, and Jim Rutherford is over here, Francis is definitely over here with Hextall. They're very similar. Let's see here. Dave suggests Calle Yarncroc. We were told today, and Elliot Friedman reported this, and it was kind of what we were hearing from our Vegas folks, that the price on a player like Jarncroc, and I want to be very specific, a player like Jarncroc is a second and third round pick. Maybe you can beat up Vegas because they're going to have to clear about $5.1 million just to activate Jack Eichel. So they've got to clear a good bit of money to activate him. Although Zach Whitecloud broke his toe, he'll be out a little while. But look, a broken toe isn't exactly like a broken leg. Broken toe heals in a few weeks. You're back in skates. You pack some peanut butter in the skate, and away you go. So I don't think that's any sort of long-term fix. Yeah, Yarncroc could be a second and a third. I think they're talking. Who was the other player that Friedman mentioned today? In fact, here I'm going to link this to you. Vegas Hockey Now. Give me 1 second. Our guy Owen Krebs, RMU's Owen Krebs, has been doing a bang-up job. I mean, he was a Pittsburgh Hockey Now intern. We knew he had the ambition, and we just kind of said, okay, you want to take over Vegas? Go for it, kid. You know, we look over his shoulder. We're in frequent communication with Owen, but he's killing it. I mean, he's doing better with Vegas than some of the, we had a few established writers come through Vegas Hockey Now, and they all kind of got frustrated. And none of them stuck it out, lasted through the tough times. Owen hasn't had the tough times. He's just, his growth curve has been straight up, and we've been having a blast with him. So there's the Vegas Hockey Now story. And, Elliot said, a second and a third for Jarncroc. And let's see here. Come on, Owen, get to the names. Because Jack Eichel is skating. Oh, yeah. Riley Smith and William Karlsson. They're both in that same sort of second and third draft pick price tag. I don't see the Penguins giving up a second and a third. I just don't see Hextall doing it unless it's a player that he feels will be around for some time. Yeah, Hextall's not going to give up a boatload for a rental. That just ain't happening. And if you look back at the last, decade? Look back at the big rentals on the market every year. They rarely lead to Stanley Cups. The big get on the trade market, more often than not, does not work out. Greg says that stick to the head. I'm assuming you're meaning Brad Marchand should land him 10 games. It was a jab. It was like he was flipping a burger, kind of. He didn't cause any injury. He won't get 10 games, a couple games. And I caught some of the Boston broadcast tonight. The Boston broadcast assumes he will be suspended. I actually enjoyed my time watching Nesson tonight. A little bit that I did. I thought Jack Edwards and Andy Brickley did a great job. And for their part too, I was expecting them to get kind of up in arms over Crosby and Bergeron tangling. Oh, that's a slew foot. Look, Crosby's foot's inside Bergeron, and he needs to be more careful. They didn't do any of that. They gave Crosby a pass on that and just called it unfortunate incidental contact, which just knocked me out of my chair. I was expecting homerism level 10 on that moment. Bergeron, Bruce Cassidy said post-game that he expects Bergeron probably does have a concussion, but he doesn't know. But given the way he went off the ice, he said it wouldn't be surprising. Let's see here. Oh, maybe when a player gets killed from attacks like everyone, let's dial down what Marchand really did here. Okay, he punched a player. I mean, there's 20 punches a game thrown, right? He jabbed his. There was no danger of serious injury. Maybe some stitches. That's about as much as that was the worst case scenario. If Marchand, flipped the mask off and the blade, he gets a couple. There's no chance of any real injury there. Okay, wanted to put that out there. So I'm working as we do this live chat. It is a live chat here. So we've already been over the X's and O's a little bit. If you want to review that, if you want to ask about any players, if you want to get my take on the Penguins breaking down, they're I don't want to call it decaying, but they're really having a difficult time keeping structure. They're having a very difficult time of keeping their game together, are the Penguins, and that's surprising to me. Matt says, any thoughts on Nylander, whichever way I say it, in Wilkes-Barre, 13 points, 16 games. Actually, I had a personal chat with Alex just over a week ago now, actually about 10 days. Wilkes-Barre Scranton stopped in Cranberry to practice at UPMC Lemieux on their way to Cleveland 10 days ago. They had a double set up in Cleveland against what do they call them, the Lake Monsters, or just the Monsters now, whatever Cleveland's AHL team is called. And I had a chance to chat with Alex. I will tell you, he's got the right attitude. And I generally, when I'm talking to a player like Alex Nylander, I'm not listening to the words. I know that sounds terrible for me to say. Yes, I actually have to print the words that they say. And I didn't do a story on him because I wanted to see where it went. I wanted to see, he had that hot start, and I wanted to see if Nylander would continue that progression. He's playing on a line with Sam Poulin in Wilkes-Barre. But the reason I didn't listen to his words is I wanted to gauge him as a person and the conviction with which he said the words. That's, I guess I've been around too long when I'm like, turn my hearing aid off and I don't listen to the words anymore. I'm listening to body language. I'm listening to tone of voice. I'm comparing that to what I see on the ice. And some guys just take an extra day or two to mature. Nylander has not been with great organizations. He's been with Buffalo, Chicago. Now he's with Pittsburgh. And the Penguins, for whatever criticisms others might hurl at the Pittsburgh Penguins or the Penguins organization, the Penguins are a first-class organization. The way they treat their players in Wilkes-Barre and in Pittsburgh, and the way they develop them is to the best of their ability. I think the Penguins' track record speaks pretty well. They haven't always had the best talent, but they've actually, look, they look what, they develop guys like Radim Zohorna. And you go back to 16 and 17 with Rust, Sherry, Gensel, Tommy Kuhnackel. Who am I missing? As part of that Wilkes-Barre crew. So I think the Penguins have shown that if you have the talent, they will do everything they can to get it out of you. And I was impressed with Nylander. I came away after my chat with him thinking that he understood where he came up short with specifics. I just had the sense from him that if he could do it all over again in Buffalo, or even maybe getting off on the right foot in Chicago, I get the feeling that he knows where he went wrong or would like to do some things differently. And when you get a chance with the Pittsburgh Penguins, or a chance to play with Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, and get a chance to go win Stanley Cups, perhaps, it's a bit of a come to Jesus moment. I I don't know if Nylander will get up to the NHL this season, but I know he's making a good push, and I think he's got the right attitude. But I've also been fooled before. Unlike the who won't get fooled again, I probably will. Let's see here. Ask a physician. A punch to the back of the goalie's head could seriously injure or John, that's not going to kill a player. Or there'd be body bags in the arena every night. Yeah, what was that about? Why did Marchand do it? I think Marchand has to answer that question. I don't know what Jarry said to him. I don't know what Marchand was doing, whether he was trying to intimidate or rattle Jarry. But Jarry rattled Marchand. Think about that. Tristan Jarry rattled Brad Marchand. I think that's pretty impressive, actually. Just from an objective point of view, the agitator got agitated. He got. And I think that was pretty cool, actually, to see. You don't see that very often. How many games will the face licker get suspended? Oh, I do love you folks. I'm gonna go on a limb and say 1 game. I'm just gonna say it's a 1-game suspension, and that's where it is because there was no injury. Can't really say it was an attempt to injure, and I think that's where the NHL might not even suspend Marchand because it really wasn't an attempt to injure. It was reckless and stupid, and Bruce Cassidy called it just a lack of discipline. He's got to keep his emotions under control, which obviously, let me get my second coffee here. So yeah, don't get too worked up about it. So let's dive into a little bit of the Hextall and Jason Botterill conversation. One of my Twitter followers pointed out that, in fact, Jared McCann might be an interesting name to discuss. And I'll phrase it that way. One of my Twitter followers said Jared McCann. I really was like, ooh, that makes sense, because I do think the Penguins could use another scoring threat. Do we know if Evan Rodriguez is going to go ice cold? I mean, Evan Rodriguez is a guy who's to this season had only ever scored 9 goals before. A lot of guys have had a great first half. A lot of guys have been there, but didn't have that second half. I thought Rodriguez played fairly well on Tuesday night against the Boston Bruins. You saw Rodriguez shooting the puck. In fact, he finished with only 2 shots. Yikes. He did have 1 assist. So that gives him 3 points in his last, I think I said 2 points in his last 14 games. That makes it 3 points in his last 15 now for Rodriguez. Those 2 shots he had were in the first period. So that means the last 40, he didn't get any shots, which is a little bit disappointing. So I thought the Penguins actually had a much better second period, but he got his shots off early. And let me take a look at the game sheet here, which is now official. Brian Rust, 4 shots. Crosby, 5. Now, bear in mind, the Penguins had 25 shots. So if Crosby had 5, he's already at 20% of the team's output. If Brian Rust had 4, well, that's almost 40%. That's over 40%. And where's Gensel? Gensel had 1. So the Penguins' top 3 players had 10 of the 25 shots on goal. Right on line with 40%, right? And the Penguins, Crosby's been on the ice for 40% of the Penguins' goals over the last 15 games. Or I'm sorry, 30 games. So circling back, kind of tying this all together with a player like Jared McCann, I think the Penguins could use a little bit of offensive depth. I think the Penguins could use an infusion of energy and scoring threat in that top 6. I think Danton Heinen maybe isn't that guy, even, despite his 2 goals tonight. And I don't want to put the boots to a guy for a 2-goal performance. long term, I don't know that he is a guy who's going to continue to score in the playoffs or down the stretch when the hockey gets dirty and ugly and gritty and greasy and grimy, all of those sorts of things. They play Carolina on Thursday. Oh, it does Boston. Yeah, no Bergeron or Marchand. That would be actually that would be bad news for the Penguins. The Penguins need Boston to beat Carolina on Thursday night, so the Penguins can get up into that top thing. I think the Penguins want to win the Metro. Just looking, you know what? We'll just spitball this while I'm doing it. The Penguins would be in a much better position winning the Metro division and facing one of the wild card teams. They'd be facing Boston with Jeremy Swayman in net or Linus Ullmark. Tuukka Rask is going to retire. We can essentially, our boys in Boston confirming that tonight. The Athletic was the first to report it. Our boys, Boston Hockey, now we're right there with them with the report. And so Rask is most likely going to retire. Maybe he changes his mind in a couple days, but he had another setback. And I think there's a bit more to it that he's just going to say, you know what, this was a nice shot. It's over. The Penguins would do well to face Boston or Washington in the first round, rather than a very hungry New York Islanders team, or very hungry New York Rangers team that seems to be on a roll, that is getting great goaltending. They've got great defense in New York, and they've got a lot of scoring. Barclay Goodrow is there now with Chris Kreider and Lafreniere, et cetera, Zibanejad. So I don't think I'd want to face New York in the first round, nor would you want to face the Storm Surge, Carolina Hurricanes in the first round. Do me a favor, give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Help us get over 1,000. So we start getting paid to do these when we hang out with you. I think, I think the Washington Capitals roster has quite a few holes. I was talking with Sammy Silber, our beat writer in DC, on that. And when Daniel Sprong and Connor Sherry, as much as I like Lars Eller, but they're asking Lars Eller to be a scoring threat now, and I don't think that's going to be so great. And they're asking Connor McMichael to play above his pay grade or his level right now. They're asking a lot of players to play above their natural level. The defense could use some bolstering in Washington as well. And the goalies have not performed well this season. They're mediocre. So I think a series with Washington would be in the Penguins' advantage to get past that first round. Same with Boston. As much as I think Boston thumped the Penguins tonight, created chaos, and I think when the playoffs roll around, you would assume the Penguins have everything gelled by that point, and those structural breakdowns and those silly mistakes will not be occurring. I could be wrong. We've seen the Penguins be globetrotter hockey in the first round before. Dave tells me, yeah, they started Phoenix Copley tonight. Yeah, I knew about that. He's had a rough road. Copley bounced around the Blues, the Capitals, somebody else too. I think he was with the third organization, but the Capitals brought him back, giving him a chance, and he gives up a brutal goal tonight and gets pulled. Yikes! So the goalie struggles in DC continue. You want to play a team without confidence in its goalie in the first round. You want that team, no question about it. What do I think about Trevor Zegras? Only Hockey asks. I think he's exciting. I think he owned the skills competition. I thought the dodgeball thing was hysterical, Only Hockey. However, the next time he tries a Michigan goal, I want to see a defenseman plant him into the ice like azaleas. I don't want to see this cutesy garbage anymore on the ice. Look, you can't be playing with the puck up above your waist, playing lacrosse. That's a different sport. It's also dangerous because you're leading with your blade, not down on the ice. You're leading with your stick. And this is why players of days gone by would just flatten you if you tried something silly like that. A former NHL player texted us uh, in the final game before the All-Star break. Jimmy Murphy showed, kind of led the conversation, and the player responded simply, "In my day, we'd blanking kill him." So that's I don't like the lacrosse goals. I don't like them for a lot of reasons. It's kind of the lacrosse goal to me is like traveling in the NBA. They just let it go. Oh, fans love it. No, fans don't love it. Fans want to see basketball, and the great casual fan has tuned out the NBA over the last 10. Look, I mean, just look at the decline of the NBA as hockey catches it in a lot of America. And in part, it's because basketball got bastardized, and I don't want to see hockey get bastardized in quite the same way. I don't want to see hockey, have the above the rim moment that the NBA had, where the game is no longer reflective of the fundamentals of the game. So that's my soapbox. You got me started. I do have a lot of thoughts on Zegras. And what do I think about Ryan Reeves? Oh, he's with the Rangers, yes, making them very tough. A guy like Ryan Reeves makes you 6 foot taller and 10 pounds heavier. 6 foot taller, 6 inches taller, and 10 pounds heavier. And that can be invaluable. No question about it. All right, kids, I'm going to put out the last call here. Last call for alcohol. Final questions, final comments here as the Penguins escape with a 4-2 win. I think I've expressed enough appreciation for Tristan Jarry's performance on Tuesday night. He certainly had a whale of a game, just like he did in the All-Star game when he was turning aside all those shots in the final couple of minutes. I did the same thing for the Penguins on Tuesday night. The Penguins have to start protecting their goalie a whole lot more. I understand why no Penguin decapitated Marchand, because you're leading 3-2 with 10 or 20 seconds to go, 30 seconds to go, whatever it was. You don't want to take a penalty there and give Boston a chance to win the game. That would have been a lack of discipline by the Penguins. So instead, they took the power play, and they will see Brad Marchand again. And that's when you settle the score. In the first period, when Marchand is skating across the blue line and suddenly looking up at the rafters covered in popcorn because you planted him 3 rows deep, that's when you settle that score. Yeah, too many Penguins retreads not helping the Capitals. I think I would agree with that. I was laughing with Sammy Silber about that very thing. Although, if the Capitals get one more former Penguin, and you know who I mean, in goal, that certainly would change everything, wouldn't it? Marchand's punch is the equivalent of a chihuahua. Hey, props on spelling chihuahua. I can never spell that word. I always have to have Grammarly tell me how to spell it. All right, kids. That's been 50 minutes of a post-game chat. I appreciate you as always. I'm going to post this on the website. If you are so inclined, Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Look, the sports betting folks are really starting to enjoy us, and I must tell you, I'm starting to enjoy them because they are funding the National Hockey Now expansion. By working with you and working with everybody. So here, I'm going to give you this little code, this story here. If you want to place a few shekels on the Super Bowl, here you go. Here's, I think, the best promo this week is from FanDuel, and you can get like $280 free bet with FanDuel. Like, subscribe, enjoy. I will see you back in Pittsburgh real soon, and have fun.